Yeah, no, just welcome, Alex, and thank you very much for doing this for us. We fully appreciate it, and it's something that I am a beginner in regards to what I've learned with you so far. So it's definitely very cool to learn from each other, and for everyone else in a fight to tune in and learn some goodies too, because I think we can always improve in lots of areas in our life, and this is something that will help us hopefully with our running.
Certainly. Awesome. Right. Well, let's move on this evening. Breath basics. What we're going to get into tonight by the end of this call, how to measure our baseline oxygen level test. So it's essentially a baseline indicator of how effective and efficient our body is at picking up oxygen starvation in our bodies. We'll chat through a little bit about biochemistry and biophysics in relation to our breath, how that's connected throughout our body, and the importance of the diaphragm in running, which I just keep getting more fascinated by all of these things. When you start peeling back a layer, it's like, wow, okay, this makes a little bit of sense, or I didn't know that existed. So this here, shutting our mouths. So we're going to chat through the importance of shutting our mouth. This isn't a chat about convincing people to nasal breathe. I'm not ever going to tell anyone to do anything or try anything. This is just some things that I've found and then backtracked, looking up the research and science and data behind it. And some of these things have been blowing my mind. And feel free at any time to send me new information. I'm always super open throughout this as well. So let's talk about oxygen uptake. So maximal oxygen uptake is the largest limiting factor in sports performance. Okay, so how quickly our body can get oxygen into our cells and tissues whilst exercising. Okay, so fundamental. Sort of comes back to the adage of how to get better at running is to run more. So our body gets used to that process. But the thing that I found most fascinating is that, contrary to belief, our blood is saturated with 96 to 99% oxygen at any one time. So if you've got a fancy watch, I just got a watch for the first time the other month, and it tells you your specific oxygen, your SpO2. And what that is it actually tells you the specific saturation of the blood oxygen in your blood at that point in time of that measurement. Okay, and so normally if you're resting, it'll say 98%, for instance, which is fascinating because, oh, there you go, Zoe's got it.
Sorry, on Garmin it's your pulse oxygen. So same thing. Yeah,
same thing. So pulse oximeter. Or specific oxygen. I think it's SpO2 on a Coros. So that indicates what concentration of oxygen's in your blood. So we would think that breathing more, faster or harder, gets more oxygen in to make us go faster. If oxygen is the biggest limiting factor, the challenge is, wait up, the blood's already saturated with 98% oxygen. So what is the thing that unlocks that in the cells or in the blood? So we're going to go through some basic chemistry. It's pretty easy to understand. I didn't really like or get on with my chemistry teacher at school, but I think it was just because it was boring and not contextual. Can you make something, the liquid turn purple? So basic chemistry, we breathe in oxygen and breathe out CO2. And most people view carbon dioxide as a waste gas or something that warms the planet. That is, however, the key variable that releases oxygen from the red blood cells for metabolism to take place. That is called the Bohr effect. Okay, and so it was invented by a guy, Niels Bohr, who was the forefather to Mr. Bohr that was associated with nuclear and atomic energy and physics and things like that. And so what it means is that to release the oxygen that's already in our saturated blood, we need carbon dioxide to do so. So the amount of carbon dioxide in our blood cells determines how much oxygen we can use. So when we are breathing light and right, our breath is quiet and rhythmic, and if it is loud and sporadic, we're releasing too much CO2 out of the system, which makes it harder for our system to unlock the oxygen in our cells. So then when we look to breathing through the nose, nasal breathing reduces total ventilation required by over 20%. And this is also due to the fact that it constricts the volume of air we can intake. But in doing so, it constricts the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide that can go out, which forces an increase in oxygen usage efficiency within the body. When we breathe through our nose, it's a powerful vasodilator. That's a fancy, fancy word, vasovascular blood system. Dilator, dilation, dilution, right? So it makes things weaker. If you pour a bit of alcohol, one shot, and you pour it in a tall glass, it'll dilute it significantly. But if you have it in a short glass, it'll be really strong. So nasal breathing accesses nitric oxide, which is produced in our nose, which is a gas that dilates our blood cells and makes it easier for the cell walls in our lungs to exchange the carbon dioxide and the oxygen. And so when we dilate the alveoli membrane, it makes it more efficient to exchange gas in our lungs. So the other thing around shutting our mouth is that when we access the increase in nitric oxide through our nose, and then we enable our ability to utilize the carbon dioxide higher, when we are asleep, it is also a very beneficial tool, because when we are running or doing exercise or increased training loads, our rest and recovery time is often super important at nighttime when we're recharging and restoring our body. And so if our body's working really hard just to breathe or just to exchange gases at the evening, then it'll also make us more tired in the morning. So working with the nose, if at night, it's an easy way to train our body by shutting our mouths to then increase our breathing capacity throughout the days. And so there's a ton of research as well around this, around assisting effects such as snoring and sleep apnea too. And you might have heard of some things like mouth tape, taping your mouth. It does help, and it is an effective way to train the body to utilize some of these benefits whilst we sleep. So 24 hours in a day, we might all get 8 hours of sleep. And so training while we sleep or recharging more effectively while we sleep for a third of the day, it's a pretty good use of time.
Have you taped your mouth when you've gone to sleep?
No, I have not. Because what's really curious is I've realized that after doing yoga for 10 years and not doing it in context of anything else, I've trained my body through that practice. And so yeah,
it's not required. You don't need to do it because you breathe through your nose anyway. Yeah. No, I was just curious if you taped it while sleeping, because I feel like others might feel the same. Like, is it a bit claustrophobic feeling?
So there's some good products out there. One's called snooze tape, which is like a little X. Go like that. And so it enables you to still have if you need. There's another one called myo tape, which actually goes all the way around the outside. So if you increase the tension on the outside of the lips and the cheek here, it actually naturally retracts your lips forward and keeps your mouth closed. So based on your fascia tension, again, if it needs to, it can open. Or the other one is just like really light masking tape. And so it's like barely sticks on, right? But it's just that effect that you can test it out with.
Yeah, and I suppose like most people, if they like tape at the start and it comes undone, they're probably already like training their brain. You know, those neural pathways are linking up and going, cool, we shut our mouth when we go to sleep. So it's something that you probably don't have to do for very long.
Correct, right? And the other awesome way to think about it is like if you're doing like a simple basic task like washing the dishes, just try wash the dishes with your mouth closed for that whole period. Or if you're cooking dinner, same thing. Just be aware of like when I am moving through my day, am I breathing through my nose? Am I breathing through my mouth? I particularly personally find it really hard on calls like this for an hour talking. And I'm like, oh, my mouth's so dry. I'm like, everything's going. I'm like, ah. And I often am a little bit antisocial when I run. It's not because I don't like people or talking, but I'll just normally be like, yep, yep, that sounds good. So, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. I'm sure lots of people will want to get tape for their partners so their partners don't snore too.
Yeah, there's some really interesting research behind it. So we can do the bulk test as well, which will also give some indication around some of those things, because what we're looking for is functional breathing, right? So combining the biochemistry and the biomechanics so that we're breathing well.